Hello everybody. This is Stephanie with CViConnect, and I am hoping to have a few of you join me today and we can learn some more about the data. But while we are waiting for that to happen, everyone to join us, that is, we will just kind of hang out. I am monitoring the comments and things as best as I can. So please let me know if there's anything that you need. If you have any questions at all as we go through this stuff today, let me know. I'm going to give it just another couple minutes. I got on early today since last month when we did this. It was a little bit late, so hopefully everyone's able to join us and we can rock and roll shortly. We are trying out some different times of the day too for these because I know as educators, at least for me, it was really hard to figure out when was the best time to join some of these live events that were going on from different companies and things like that. I wanted to see what they had to offer so I could know what was best for me and for my students. So feel free when you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching back the recording, to drop in the chat and let us know if there's a time of day that you'd prefer this. And make sure you include your time zone because we know we have some people from the East Coast and all the way out to the West Coast that will watch this from the US. So please be sure to let us know where you're from, and if you have a preferred time for us to do these kinds of things, let us know that too. If you are just someone who's like, hey, I can't catch you live, it's not going to happen, that's totally fine. Let us know that and let us know that you'll be watching the recording. That is totally fine as well. We will definitely make sure to keep this recording up as soon as possible. So for those of you who couldn't join us live, have a chance to check in and see what's going on. Folks, for anyone who's joined us, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Stephanie Steffer, and I'm the business director with CViConnect. I was a teacher for the visually impaired for 10 years prior to this role. And so for those of you who are in that teacher for the visually impaired role, I can definitely relate to you. Worked with lots of different parents and families of kiddos with CVI, and that is how this was created, was that foundation of us needing to support these kiddos and these families. So one of the biggest things that we pride ourselves on is our data collection, and we get that question all the time, what is the data behind CViConnect? So on this picture here on the screen, you see this beautiful little girl, Peyton, was one of my students, and the iPad. And what we're trying to show you is that the iPad's forward-facing camera is detecting where your student is, looking for that face while they're engaging in those activities. So while we're looking at while your student is looking at the iPad screen, the iPad is capturing 64 unique data points along their face to detect if they're looking or if they're looking away and where they're looking at on the screen. You would never see this simulation that's put here on the screen, but I just wanted to show you some of those data points that we're trying to capture to understand how our kiddos are using their vision better. So what data do we collect? The iPad is capturing our session date and time, the session length. Your mediator has a chance to make any comments after the session, so they can make note about the position your child was in, the student's health, behavior, environmental information, anything like that that might be impacting your student's ability to be using their vision. And then we're also capturing the look detection, and this is what we're going to dive even more into today, which is the number of looks, the length of those looks. You can look for look and look away patterns, gaze patterns, and that touch data. So let me show you what this might look like. After your students have completed a session on the CViConnect application, either the CViConnect Home or CViConnect Pro, this is sent over to the teacher's dashboard online. And the teachers can pull up each of the sessions that the students have run. So here I have two example sessions where the student ran a bubble machine red slow and a bubble machine green slow. Those are two of our newer activities that we just released. And you can tell how long the session was run for, the total time that they were looking at the screen. In this case, the child did not touch the screen at all, and the number of looks that they had. Then we can actually click on these blue links on the far left, and when we do, it'll actually open up the specific data from that session. So in this example, this is the bubble machine green, and Again, we can see when they started the session, when they ended it, but what I really like to pay attention to is this total time looking at the screen. In addition, so in this case, it was 1 minute and 52 seconds, right? But we can also look at the longest look. So for in phase one, for example, we're looking for kids to make that joint attention and maintain that attention with an object, right? And so this is going to tell us how long they had that sustained visual attention onto the screen. So out of a total runtime of just a little bit over 2 minutes, they had one look that was pretty substantial of 1 minute and 9 seconds. Now, these are just sample students that I ran, and I'm just trying to get you example data here. I would definitely run it for a lot longer. Some of our kids' warm-ups are needed to be longer than that, but this is just a quick example of numbers that you can see when you're looking into your data collection system, okay? So again, that was their longest look, but I also want to know how long were they not looking. So we had that 9-second period where they were not looking, and we had a total of 13 looks, okay? So really what that ultimately means is, oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to go into the red activity, and then I'm going to compare the two, okay? So we have bubble machine red, and this activity was actually run for longer. If you look up here, this was a 3-minute activity, but their longest look was significantly less. So this was only a 17 second look. Now, if you've listened to any of my content previously, I had made a comment before about the total looks and the longest look and the looking time and a trend that we were looking for. And we found that there's a lot of different scenarios that could take place. And so for that reason, you can see here that the over 2 minutes of the time the child was not looking, and they had a total of 8 looks. But here is a better way for you to get a true picture of what they are looking at. You can use this session events timeline, and this was loaded in probably late spring of 2022 for you guys to utilize. This is an amazing feature our developers put in for you guys to be able to look at this timeline of events. And so I've captured both of these from, on the top here, we have the bubble machine red, and on the bottom we have the bubble machine green, so you guys could see them side by side. In the CViConnect Pro dashboard, you would only see one event, one session timeline at a time. But here you can see exactly how, here's that looked at display that they looked at and then had a looked away, looked at, a general look away. And so you're getting that 13 back and forth times, right? Even some of them are pretty little. They're just only lasting a second, kind of glancing back and forth. Whereas on the bottom, you can see that we had much longer sustained visual attention opportunities. You did have that quick glances as well here in the middle and a few back here at the beginning, but here's where that nice long visual look came into play. So this almost tells me that the student had some glances in the beginning, they were kind of getting used to it, and then they really showed that attention to it. And sadly, we ended it abruptly on the poor student. Remember, this is just a test student, but we interrupted that activity and they finished the activity here. So this timeline can tell us exactly what our students are doing throughout that session. On the dashboard, you can actually hover over these bars and see how long that length is. But you can see that even though the bubble machine red ran for 3 minutes and the bubble machine green only ran for 2, that green definitely had a greater impact, a greater ability for the child to sustain visual attention towards with even a shorter session. So that definitely shows me that green might have an impact now and even later on as the child continues to use their vision in different situations. The other thing that I want to bring back to that main session page is the time. So sometimes we notice that our students are going to be looking better at different points in the day. So here you can see that in an afternoon session that they were looking at the screen for looks like 8 seconds. It was a very short duration here. And then here in the evening, you can see that they didn't look at it at all. And it could be by the time that they had the opportunity to run the session in the evening, they were so fatigued they weren't able to use their vision. Or maybe they just ate dinner, and so it was really hard for them after they've had that food in their belly, they're not going to be able to focus there. All those environmental things that we know can impact our kiddos. Which brings me to this comment section. This is where the mediator can put in those notes after a session is completed. It can be anything that you want. You have a great big box there. You can keep typing and put in as much information as you need, and put in the notes that are relevant for your student. If you need to make a comment about the room level noise, for example, and here it's, they're laying in supine and the room was really quiet, or maybe you would need to make a make a comment about how loud the room was. Whatever the case may be, you can put all of that information here that may be relevant to your learner. Here's another example of the session events timeline for our higher students that are further along in the CVI range. We might be looking to see, are they looking and touching at the same time? So we have this drag graphic spot here where we can see those little bars, and you can line that up with the looked at display shown here in green. And you can see that most of the looking and the touching are not happening at the same time. You're getting a lot of the looked away and then reaching. And even this far one over to the right-hand side, it might look like this was a touch and a look at the same time, but if you look all the way down, there's a little slit. It's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but you'd be able to see it better, and you'd see how it's divided up when you're hovering over on the website. But you can see here that there's no face detected shown in blue at this exact same time as the drag graphic, showing me that that is a looked away while the student was touching that graphic on the screen. So we're showing it that this student is not yet using their hand-eye coordination. They're not yet using that visually guided reach to complete those tasks on the iPad. And then finally, it looks like we're down to the charts and reports section. So underneath our session tab on our website, we offer a variety of charts and reports. And what's really nice about this is you're going to be looking at your trends for your students throughout the day. And this is really cool. You can check out a variety of different things. Here's a picture here that I have of the student look time per week, the student activities report, student activity runtime per day, and the student time spent per activity. And each of those can be used for a variety of ways to support your IEP goals or capture data and look, like I said, at those trends over time to see how your student is responding to the current plan you have in place. Are you, offering too many digital activities versus not enough real life manipulatives that they can get their hands on? Are you not offering enough visual opportunities throughout the day in general? Are the activities not a good fit? You can kind of really get a better idea of their day by looking at things like this. Back in March 2020, we had a kiddo who was doing really well using several activities per day. And then we went into our quarantine and it was just too much. Mom was not able to keep up with it for many reasons. As we all know, it was a lot on all of us. And so I'm not surprised to see a trend line like this. We might see that over holiday breaks or vacations from school or summer break, unfortunately. But at least we understand why there's a dip in there, and then we might see that trend line go back up again. In this case, we have the student look time per week. And so the looking at the screen is in green, and then the looking away is the black line that measures out at the top. And so you can see here that as we increased the amount of time for the student to look at the screen, for the first 3 opportunities here, we were also seeing an increase in that looking. And then all of a sudden, we got this drop. Well, then when we looked back at the teacher's notes, we found that this is the week before Thanksgiving, and the child happened to get really sick. And then this was the actual week of Thanksgiving break. And so that kind of explains why we had these lower numbers. And now if we were to look at from today, for example, we would start to see some of those trend lines to go back up. This last graph that I want to show you here is an example of the time spent per activity. And so you can kind of get an idea of which activities the student is using most often, and and you can kind of correlate that again to see, are we seeing the trends in the right direction? Is this the activity they should continue spending their time on? And you can change the date to go back and look at month by month if you want to, or see how that is trending for your student. Okay, this new feature that we are just now getting ready to launch is our gaze detection. We've been talking about it for a little bit, but it's finally available in our latest update with CViConnect and CViConnect Pro. And now when you look at your activity data, you can actually go to, let me scroll back, sorry. Oh, this page here where it says pictures and other associated files, that's the tab you're going to click on. And when you do, it'll pull up image files that you can download. So for example, you might download a picture like this that shows us that elephant and where the child was looking at on the screen. Super helpful for us to better understand that gaze pattern. How is our student using their vision while they are looking at different tasks? And the best thing I can do is tell you guys to compare student to student. So you're not going to compare, Jimmy to Susie or Mohammed to anyone else. Like, you're just looking at how each student compares amongst themselves to their data. So if I had Shannon looking at something, I want to know, how does Shannon look at the elephant versus Shannon looking at something a little bit more complex, because that's going to give us more insight to how they're using their vision. Make sure, in order to have access to this, if you are currently using CViConnect or CViConnect Pro, that you go in and update your apps from the App Store, and afterwards go into your settings and make sure that you've updated and turned these things on. It'll automatically, because of Apple's security and privacy settings, it's going to start with these things turned off. So things like your gaze detection and heat mapping will automatically be turned off. If you'd like to access these features, you will have to go into your settings and turn each of these on. If you have any questions about that or having any trouble accessing these things, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you at any point in time throughout your journey. Lastly, I would just like to say that if you haven't already, please feel free to sign up for our CViConnect newsletter. News like our updates and other things that are going on are sent out in this What's Trending newsletter that we send out whenever we have those new updates available for you. So that might be that there are conferences in the CVI community going on, or that we have an update on the app. Whatever the case may be, if we know about it or want to share it with you, and this is a great way to hear about that information. Our next live event will be on Facebook again, and it will be January 11th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, we are looking at trying a few different times of day and days of the week even to see what works best for you guys. So if there is a time or a day that doesn't work, or it's just kind of hit and miss depending on the week because of your schedule, totally understand that too. But just any feedback at all would be appreciated, so we can make sure that we are doing our best to meet your needs. So that is all I have for you guys today. Before I sign off, I'm just going to check in the comments and see if anyone has any additional questions. Feel free to post those in here if you have any. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And anytime you guys need me, feel free to reach out. I will post my email, or our info email, in the comment section, so you guys can get a hold of us if you need. It's info@cviconnect.co. It's a great way to reach out and get a hold of our support group, and we'd be happy to help you guys if you need.